You have seen the label 1,000 times. Texas Pete. Red cap, yellow label, the word Texas printed right across the front. It is not from Texas. It never was. The second most consumed cola on the planet was invented by a pharmacist in a small coastal town that most of America cannot find on a map. And the donut chain with the sign that lights up when the glaze is fresh, the one now operating in more than 40 countries, it started in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, when a man cut a hole in the wall of a rented building so he could pass warm donuts directly to people on the street. North Carolina has been feeding this country for over 100 years. The rest of the country just never stopped to ask where the food came from. These are 10 foods invented in North Carolina that change what America eats. Coming in at number 10 is a name that means everything if you grew up in the Carolinas and means almost nothing if you did not. Cookout started in Greensboro, North Carolina in 1989 when a man named Morris Reeves opened a single drive-through restaurant and built something that does not fit any category the fast food industry ever invented. The combo tray is the thing people always bring up first. You get an entree, 2 sides, and a drink for the kind of price that does not make sense, and the sides are not the 3 options you would expect. You can get a corn dog and a quesadilla and a slice of cheesecake in the same tray, and nobody looks at you twice. Cookout expanded slowly and on purpose. They did not flood the country with franchises. They built a following in the South by making food people actually wanted to drive out of their way for, and then they let the reputation do the rest of the work. There are people living outside the South right now who will tell you the first thing they do when they drive back home is stop at a cookout. That is not a marketing strategy. That is 35 years of loyalty built without a single national television commercial. And at number 9 is a name that functions as something close to a religion in the Carolinas. Bojangles was founded in 1977 by Jack Folk and Richard Thomas in Charlotte, North Carolina. They opened the first location on West Tavola Road, and what made it different from every other chicken and biscuit concept on the market was the Cajun seasoning. That particular blend of spice and salt and pepper hit something that other chains had not figured out yet. The Bo-Berry biscuit arrived later and became its own kind of institution. You either grew up eating one, or you understand the second someone describes it exactly what you have been missing. By the time Bojangles had grown to 800 locations, the people who loved it were not calling it fast food. They were calling it a Carolina thing, and that distinction matters more than any number of locations. For people who grew up eating here and have since moved somewhere else, about somewhere without a Bojangles on the way to anywhere, it represents a specific kind of memory. It is breakfast on a morning when you had somewhere to be and not enough time to get there, and somehow it still made the morning feel exactly like home. Coming in at number 8 is one of the most overlooked food origin stories in this part of the country. Mount Olive pickles were born in Mount Olive, North Carolina in 1926, and the reason they exist is honest in the way that the best American food stories tend to be. Farmers in the area were growing more cucumbers than they could sell. A group of local businessmen decided the answer was simple: build a pickle plant and stop watching the crop go to waste. What started as a practical fix for a farm surplus problem eventually became the largest pickle manufacturer east of the Mississippi River. The town of Mount Olive has a population of just under 5,000 people. The pickle company that grew up in that same small town ships product to grocery stores in every state in the country. Mount Olive pickles are now available in all 50 states. The town still holds a North Carolina Pickle Festival every year. A town of 5,000 people, a pickle festival. If that tells you everything you need to know about the relationship between that community and that jar of pickles, you are paying attention. And at number 7 is the food that will mean everything to some of you and will require a full explanation for everyone else. Livermush is made from pork liver, head parts, and cornmeal, pressed into a loaf, sliced thick, and pan-fried until the edges get crispy. German settlers brought the tradition to the North Carolina foothills in the 1800s, and it has never left. If you grew up west of Hickory, none of that requires explanation. You know what livermush smells like when someone is frying it early on a winter morning. You know it goes on a biscuit. You know the edges have to be crispy before you put it anywhere. For everyone else, here's what you need to understand. There is a town called Shelby, North Carolina, that holds a Livermush Expo every year, and people show up for it with genuine enthusiasm. This is not a quirk. This is a community that knows what it has and has chosen to celebrate it rather than explain it to anyone. Livermush has never tried to go national. It has never been rebranded or reformulated for a broader audience. It exists exactly where it always has, in exactly the form it has always taken, and the people who grew up eating it would not change a single thing about that. Coming in at number 6 is something that goes deeper than food. Eastern North Carolina barbecue is whole hog. The entire animal is cooked low and slow over hardwood coals for 12 to 18 hours. And when it is done, it is pulled apart by hand and dressed with a thin sauce built on apple cider vinegar and red pepper flakes. No ketchup, no tomato. That is not a preference. It is a rule that has been in place longer than most American states have existed. The tradition traces back to the colonial era, and its deepest roots are in African American cooking traditions that built what became one of the most recognized regional food cultures in the country, while rarely receiving the credit for having done so. The Skylight Inn in Ayden, North Carolina has been cooking whole hog this way since 1947. They have a James Beard America's Classics Award. The building has a dome on the roof because they won a national barbecue competition and decided the appropriate response was to put a dome on the roof. It is cash only. There is nothing decorative about what they do. People drive from other states to eat there. People fly from other countries. And what they find when they arrive is something that has not changed in decades. That, more than any award, is the point. And at number 5 is the other North Carolina barbecue tradition. If you just heard me say that, you already know someone who wants to argue about it. Lexington-style barbecue came out of the North Carolina Piedmont in the early 1900s. 2 men are most often credited with starting it. Sid Weaver and Jess Swicegood began cooking pork shoulders over open wood pits and selling the results from simple roadside stands. The difference from Eastern style is in what they cook and in what they put on it. Lexington uses the shoulder, not the whole hog. The sauce is vinegar-based, but it carries ketchup in it, which gives it a tomato-touched finish. Locals call it the DIP. The coleslaw goes on the sandwich. At one point, Lexington, North Carolina had more barbecue restaurants per capita than almost anywhere else in the United States. They have called themselves the barbecue capital of the world, and they have never once softened that claim. The argument between Eastern North Carolina and Lexington over which tradition is the real North Carolina barbecue has been going on for 100 years and is nowhere close to resolution. For people who grew up in this state, picking a side is not just a food preference. It is a statement about who you are and exactly where you are from. Coming in at number 4 is the soda that has never needed to leave home to prove it belongs anywhere in the world. Cheerwine was created in Salisbury, North Carolina in 1917 by a man named L.D. Peeler. The story behind it is worth knowing. Sugar was being rationed during the First World War, and Peeler could not get enough of it to produce a conventional formula. So he went looking for something with a flavor profile distinct enough to work with less sugar than a standard recipe required. He landed on a wild cherry concentrate, and the result was unlike anything else on the market. More than 100 years later, it still is. Cheerwine has never been acquired by a large beverage company. It is still family owned and still produced in Salisbury. In 2012, Krispy Kreme partnered with Cheerwine to produce a limited edition flavored donut, and both brands involved had been born within 45 miles of each other in the same state. Neither of them had to go very far to find the other. If you have had Cheerwine cold from a glass bottle at a barbecue restaurant somewhere in the Piedmont, you already understand why people from North Carolina who move somewhere else keep a case of it in the car on the drive back home. And at number 3 is the donut that turned a rented building in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, into a global institution. In 1937, a man named Vernon Rudolph purchased a secret yeast-raised donut recipe from a chef named Joe LeBeau in New Orleans. He drove north to Winston-Salem, rented a building in a residential neighborhood, and opened a donut shop. Within a few weeks of opening, the smell of the donuts cooking was drifting into the street, and people were showing up at the door before the donuts were ready to sell. Rudolph cut a hole in the wall of the building so he could pass donuts directly to people standing on the sidewalk outside. Not because it was a clever business strategy, because he could not get the product to the people fast enough any other way. The Hot Now sign, which lights up at Krispy Kreme locations to signal that glazed donuts have just come off the line, has become one of the most recognized signals in American food culture. When that sign is on, people make U-turns. They pull off roads they were not planning to leave. They change commitments they had already made. Krispy Kreme now operates in more than 40 countries. It started in one rented building in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, because a man with a recipe and a drive from Louisiana believed enough in what he had to cut a hole in the wall. Coming in at number 2 is the longest running case of mistaken identity in American food history. Texas. Pete Hot Sauce was created by the T.W. Garner Food Company in Winston-Salem, North Carolina in the 1920s. The Garner family had been running a barbecue stand called the Sunnyside Drive-In, and their customers kept asking for a hot sauce with the kind of tangy, vinegar-forward flavor that worked specifically with Southern food. So the Garners made one. When it came time to name it, Sam Garner wanted something that sounded tough and Western. Someone in the room suggested the name Pete. Texas won the vote because it projected exactly the kind of rugged confidence they were after. Nobody paused to consider that the sauce was made in North Carolina, would continue to be made in North Carolina, and had no connection to the state of Texas whatsoever. For decades, Texas Pete remained one of the best-selling hot sauces in the United States. It was formulated specifically to complement the vinegar-heavy food traditions of the South, which is why it works on exactly the food that surrounds it. The label still says Texas. The plant is still in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. This state has been quietly producing the hot sauce that the rest of America thinks belongs to someone else for nearly 100 years, and it has never once felt the need to correct anyone. And at number 1, we go to a pharmacy on the coast of North Carolina in the year 1893. A pharmacist named Caleb Bradham in New Bern, North Carolina, was experimenting with a carbonated drink he believed would help with digestion. He served it at the soda fountain in his pharmacy and called it Brad's drink. By 1898, he had renamed it Pepsi Cola after pepsin, the digestive enzyme he believed that the drink would activate, and cola nuts, which provided the caffeine. Bradham built the company through the early 1900s. Then the First World War ended, and the sugar rationing that followed sent commodity prices into chaos. Bradham speculated on sugar futures, trying to lock in a supply before prices rose further. He guessed wrong. Sugar prices dropped instead of rising. By 1923, Caleb Bradham had lost the company he had built in the same pharmacy where he first served it. He went back to practicing pharmacy in New Bern. He died in 1934, having never seen what the drink became. The recipe was sold and changed hands, and eventually became the foundation of a brand now sold in more than 200 countries. Billions of servings a year, still technically from a small coastal town in North Carolina. The Pepsi store still stands in New Bern today. It operates as a museum and a retail shop, and if you have never been, it is worth the drive. Caleb Bradham built something in a small pharmacy that lost his name, moved on without him, and has been poured every single day since in more places than he could have imagined. That is what North Carolina does. It builds things, quietly, and the rest of the world uses them. A bottle of hot sauce that picked the wrong state. A pharmacist who lost a company that went on to change the world. 2 barbecue traditions that share a border and almost nothing else. A loaf of pork and cornmeal that never left the foothills and never needed to. These are not small stories. They are just stories that did not get told the way they deserve to be told. If you grew up in North Carolina, you have been carrying this knowledge your whole life. And if you are watching this from somewhere far from home right now, from somewhere without a cookout on the way to anywhere or a Cheerwine in the gas station cooler, you know exactly what it means to miss a place through its food. Which one of these surprised you the most?